Welcome to the June 28th, 2018 Planning Commission meeting. Why don't we have roll call?
Chairman Barry.
Here.
Vice Chair Latour.
Here.
Commissioner Bonham. Commissioner Cox.
Here.
Commissioner Finney. Here. Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
Commissioner Haynes.
Here.
Commissioner Latour. Leahy. Here. Commissioner May.
Here.
Commissioner Stebbins. Commissioner Thomas.
Here.
You have 9 members present. You do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Do you hear a motion to approve the minutes of the May 17th meeting, please?
So moved.
I move for approval of the minutes of May 17th meeting.
And I think they were seconded. All those who approve the minutes of the May 17th meeting, raise your hand. Those who do not, minutes have been approved. We're going to do a presentation of the consent agenda. I want to remind folks out in the audience that will be for both for withdrawal, deferrals, and consent. So be sure to listen up, particularly on item number 5, which is going to be on deferral. So with that, Donna.
Little Rock Planning Commission Subdivision Consent Agenda, June 28, 2018. Items for consent withdrawal. Item 4, file number S-1818, Man Subdivision Preliminary Final Plat, located at 19440 Lawson Road. The applicant submitted a request on June 5, 2018, requesting this item be withdrawn from consideration. Staff is supportive of the withdrawal request. Items for consent deferral. Item A, file number S-1811, LaMarche Village Preliminary Plat, located at 16307 Taylor Loop Road. Staff recommends deferral of this item to the August 9, 2018 hearing. The applicant and staff have been unable to resolve staff's concerns related to the driveway placement and the access and circulation on the site. Item number C, file number Z-9320, Gramercy Park at Midtown, short form PDR, located at 6400 West Markham Street, or the northwest corner of West Markham and McKinley Streets. The applicant submitted a request dated June 4, 2018, requesting deferral of this item to the August 9, 2018 public hearing. Staff is supportive of the deferral request. Item number D, file number Z-9321, Calhoun short form PDR, located at 4208 Fairview Road. The applicant failed to provide proper notice to the property owners as required by the Planning Commission bylaws. Staff recommends deferral of this item to the August 9, 2018 public hearing. Item number 1, file number S-1809-A, Breeding Addition Preliminary Final Plat, located at 7718 Henderson Road. Staff recommends this item be deferred to the August 9, 2018 Planning Commission hearing date to allow the applicant to secure approval from the Arkansas Department of Health that the existing septic system is in compliance with all health department requirements. Item number 5, file number S-1819, 65th Street Center Subdivision Site Plan Review, located at 5303 West 65th Street. The applicant has not provided staff with the site plan to address their concerns related to access and circulation on the site once the fuel island and canopy are added to the site. Staff recommends deferral of this item to the August 9, 2018 public hearing. Item number 8, file number Z-1002-A, Sonny's Car Wash, short form PCD, located at 7706 Cantrell Road. The applicant failed to provide proper notice to the property owners as required by the Commission's bylaws. Staff recommends deferral of this item to the August 9, 2018 public hearing to allow the applicant to provide proper notice. Item number 9, file number Z-2481-D, Geyer Springs Business Center, short form PCD, located behind 7315 Geyer Springs Road. The applicant failed to respond to comments raised at the June 6, 2018 Subdivision Committee meeting. Staff recommends deferral of this item to the August 9, 2018 public hearing. Item number 15, file number Z-8098-A, Palmer Revised Short Form PDR, located at 2919 through 2921 Lee Street and 1312 Kavanaugh Boulevard. The applicant submitted a request dated June 27, 2018, requesting deferral of this item to the August 9, 2018 public hearing. The applicant states additional time is needed to review staff's recommendation and potentially meet with the neighbors. The deferral request will require a waiver of the Commission's bylaws with regard to the late deferral request. Staff is supportive of the deferral request. And item number 23, file number A-332, Canis Road Deltic Potlatch Annexation. Staff needs additional time to review and consider this request. Staff recommends deferral of this item to the July 12, 2018 public hearing. Items for consent approval. Item 2, file number S-1816, Valerie Place Subdivision Preliminary Plat, located at 14,000 to 14,617 Canis Road. Staff recommends approval of the request, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions as outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the agenda staff report. Staff recommends approval of the following variance requests. A variance from section 31-256 and 36-254 to allow the front building setback to be reduced to 20 feet. A variance from section 31-232 to allow the creation of lots with a lot width less than the 60-foot typical required per the R2 single-family zoning district, to allow 5-foot side yard setbacks on all the lots within the subdivision, and to allow lots 16, 29, 33, 36, 45, and 52 to be developed with a lot area less than 7,000 square feet. And staff recommends approval of the variance request from the land alteration ordinance to allow the grading of the lots with the installation of the infrastructure in the streets for the subdivision. Item number 3, file number S-1817, Herndon, Lot 1, preliminary final plat, located at 9201 Herndon Road. Staff recommends approval of the request, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions as outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the agenda staff report. Item number 6, file number S-1820, Lumber 1, subdivision site plan review, located at 11610 Vimy Ridge Road. Staff recommends approval of the request, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions as outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the agenda staff report. Staff recommends approval of the waiver request of the screening of the outdoor storage areas along the northern, southern, and western perimeters. Staff recommends the parking lot be redesigned and concrete removed to allow for the parking to be located outside the right-of-way and the sidewalk to be located away from the back of the curb. Item number 7, file number Z-4470-K, lots 3 and 4, Chenal Park Center, zoning site plan review, located at 15112 and 15104 Chenal Parkway. The applicant has agreed to limit the stacking of the easternmost drive-through on lot 4 to 6 cars and to the channelization of the southeast driveway and entrance. Staff is now in support of the request. Staff recommends approval of the request, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions as outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the agenda staff report. Item number 10, file number Z-3371-CCC, lots 7 through 9, Colonel Glenn Tech Center, long form PCD, located on the northeast corner of South Bowman Road and Colonel Glenn Plaza Drive. The applicant has amended the request to include additional commitments with an adjacent property owner regarding building heights, site lighting, grading, and signage. This commitment will become a part of the approved site plan and the overall development plan. Staff recommends approval of the request, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions as outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the agenda staff report. Staff recommends approval of the variance request from the land alteration ordinance to allow continued grading of the site. Staff recommends approval of the variance request from the Boundary Street and Subdivision Ordinance to allow the driveway located on Lot 9 nearer the property line than typical ordinance standard. And staff recommends the street improvements adjacent to Lot 7 along South Bowman Road be completed with the development of Lot 8 or with the development of the second lot of this proposed PCD development. Item number 11, file number Z-3371-DDD, Lumber 1, long form PCD, located at 10800 Colonel Glenn Road. The applicant has removed from the request the allowance of the drive along Colonel Glenn Road located between lots 3 and 4. Based on this revision, staff is now in support of the request. Staff recommends approval of the request, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions as outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the agenda staff report. Staff recommends the drive aisles be reduced on all the lots to allow for additional street buffering area along Colonel Glenn Road. The existing parking lot curb is to be maintained, allow the street buffer to be maintained as currently exists. Item number 12, file number Z-4336-TT, Metropolitan Housing Authority, Powell Towers, short form POD, located at 1010 Wolf Street. Staff recommends approval of the request, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions as outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the agenda staff report. Item number 13, file number Z-4946-A, Showroom Ready, short form PID, located at 10118 Colonel Glenn Road. Staff recommends approval of the request, subject to compliance with the following conditions. compliance with the comments and conditions as outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the agenda staff report. There is to be no outside storage of parts, equipment, or materials. All work must take place within the enclosed building. No inoperable vehicles are to remain on the site for longer than 7 days, and the use is limited to this business and the use as described in the applicant's proposal in paragraph A and the analysis in paragraph I. Item number 14, file number Z-7899-A, Brett Short Form PDC, located at 10111 Chico Road. Staff recommends approval of the request, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions as outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the agenda staff report. Item number 16, file number Z-8235-B, the Village at Bellaterra, long form PCD and PDR, located on the northeast corner of Stagecoach Road and Alexander Road. The applicant has amended the request and is now proposing Bellaterra Lane, Bellaterra Cove, and Bellaterra Boulevard within the residential portion of the development as private streets. Staff is now supportive of the applicant's request. Staff recommends approval of the request, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions as outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the agenda staff report. Staff recommends approval of the variance request from the land alteration ordinance to allow grading of the site with the development of the first phase. And staff recommends approval of the applicant's request for a deferral of the Boundary Street improvements for the proposed Crystal Valley lateral extension located along the western boundary of the proposed development. Item number 20, file number Z-3117-E, 7415 Colonel Glenn Road, revised short form PCD, located at 7415 Colonel Glenn Road. Staff recommends approval of the request, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions as outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the agenda staff report. Item number 21, file number Z-5365-F, Geyer Springs First Baptist Church, short form PDO, located at 12400 I-30. Staff recommends approval of the request, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions as outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the agenda staff report. And item number 22, file number Z-8292-B, the House of Vision, short form POD revocation, located at 1921 Wright Avenue. Staff recommends the current POD zoning classification be revoked and the previously held R4 two-family district zoning be restored. And that concludes the consent agenda.
Thank you, Ms. James. Before we get on with the motion, I just am about to get a card on item number 16 on Bellaterra. Is that correct? Someone has questions about it. Just walked in. So we'll pull 16 off. And with that, does anyone have to recuse themselves for any of the items that are on the consent agenda before we go on with motions?
Mr. Chairman, I'd have to recuse on consent approval, but I have 3 items on there.
Thank you, Commissioner Leahy. Do I hear a motion on the bylaw waiver?
Mr. Chairman, there is a bylaw waiver needed on item number 15, and I move that that be granted.
Thank you.
I'll second.
We have a motion for the to waive the bylaws on item 15 for deferral to August the 9th. Do I hear a second on it? So those approve of the waiver and the deferral, raise your hand. Those who opposed? Okay. Now for the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda, including all staff comments and conditions therein.
Okay. Thank you. We heard a motion for the consent agenda. Do I hear a second? Second. Motion for the consent agenda has been made and seconded. Those approve the consent agenda, raise their hand. Those who do not approve? Okay. If you heard your item that was on the consent agenda for a deferral or consent, that means you're excused. I will note that there was a gentleman here for item number 5, Stephen Mann. That item's been deferred. That was on the deferral. It's, let me see. It's August 9th. Yes, sir.
I got one item here that I missed when I came in.
Okay.
So can I change that part to that item?
Yes. Come on up and we'll do that. Number 18. You're for that. Okay. 18. You got a hand. A woman's still mine. 16. Okay. We all good? Anyone just walked in and wants to speak to an item that may be coming up? Okay. Ready to proceed, Donna?
Item number B, file number Z-9284, Sticks Bar and Grill, which is actually now an event center, short form PCD, located at 3910 Asher Avenue. This item was deferred from the Commission's April 5th, 2018 public hearing to allow the applicant additional time to secure a parking agreement with the church, which owns a large portion of the paved area in front of the building. The item was deferred from the Commission's May 17th public hearing because the applicant was not present to represent their case. Since the staff write-up, the applicant has provided staff with the parking agreement with the church. Staff continues to have concerns with both the lack of parking to serve the site and the placement of an event center at this location. There are single-family homes located immediately to the north of the site. A portion of the applicant's proposed parking is located adjacent to the homes. Staff feels the site should be redeveloped to some type of retail use, which would not require the amount of parking required for an event center and would have hours that would have less of an impact on the nearby adjacent homes. Staff recommends denial of the request.
Okay. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Would you like to speak to staff's concerns, anything about your application?
Yes, sir. What I was planning on doing about the parking against the what a residence is providing a private fence up around that resident area, around the parking where, the parking wouldn't, or anything else wouldn't bother the resident behind the building. I hadn't had any complaints from the guy that stayed directly behind the building. In fact, he watches the building while I'm not there anyway. It's going to be kid friendly. I'm planning on, I want to hire a Little Rock Police Department to patrol the area if I have a night event, and hire armed security guard, private security, so they can also patrol during a day event and also night event. I want the event center for little private birthday parties or what I'm looking for is it's a receptions, wedding receptions, stuff like that, and that's basically it. It's not going to be nothing else in there.
Okay. Right. I don't have any cards on this item. You've heard staff recommendations. Commissioners, you have any comments or questions?
What is the occupancy allowed for the building?
I'm thinking they said it was like 350 people can stand up in there, just standing alone. That's it. I hadn't seen 300 people in there before, so I don't think it's going to ever get that crowded anyway.
Commissioner LaHaye.
This is for the staff. Did the surveyor ever get his survey corrected?
Yes, sir. It did.
They did.
Any other questions? I'll hear a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve this item with all conditions and terms therein, accepting that of denial.
Okay. Do you hear a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion to approve this application. Those approve the application as filed, raise your hand. Those who do not approve, did you get a count? Thank you. Motion, the application fails.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
You do have the right of appeal to the Board of Directors, so just get with me and I will give you that process.
Okay. I know someone just walked in with a card. Oh. Okay then. Rhonda Ross. We just voted on that.
Oh, thank you.
And it was turned down, so,
No need to talk. Thank you.
okay. Sorry I didn't get your card early enough, but
Just got off from work, I'm sorry.
that's all right, I understand that.
But
Okay.
if the item is appealed to the board, you will be notified.
Yep, we got,
Right, thank you.
yes. Thank you, Donna.
Item E, file number Z-9322, Townhouse Apartments, short form PDR, located at 15901 Taylor Loop Road. The request is a rezoning from R2 Single Family to PDR, Planned Development Residential, to allow the site to redevelop with 6 units of townhomes. The site currently contains .91 acres. The land area will be less after right-of-way dedication for both Taylor Loop and Gooch Roads. The plan indicates 6 total residential units, 4 units located along the south side of the site and 2 units on the north side. The units will be separated by a 2-hour fire-rated construction unless the local fire marshal requires a fire sprinkler system. Each unit is proposed with an attached 2-car garage. The units are proposed with 1,700 square feet of floor area of heated and cool space, excluding the garage area. The units are proposed 3 bedrooms and 2 baths and a half bath powder room. The maximum building height proposed is 28 feet 6 inches to the roof ridge. The plan indicates the placement of a 10-foot building setback along the southern perimeter of the site. The plan indicates a 20-foot building setback along Gooch Road and a minimum setback along Taylor Loop of 25 feet. The maximum building setback along the eastern perimeter is 15 feet. The applicant has indicated there will not be a fence placed on the perimeter due to the flooding hazard of the site. The applicant notes fences around the patio areas will be placed for each unit. Areas along the south property line will be a 6-foot high. For the length of the 4 units, a 6-foot wood fence will also be placed around the patio areas of the homes along the northern portion of the site. The development is proposed in a single phase. Public Works staff has worked with the applicant on the site drainage. The subject property is .9 acres in size, with the upstream drainage basin consisting of 422 acres. The applicant proposes to exceed the drainage requirements found in the Little Rock Stormwater Management and Drainage Manual. The applicant proposes to provide stormwater detention for a 25-year storm event, even though detention is not required to be provided with the property being developed containing less than 1 acre. The applicant also proposes to provide more stormwater storage volume on the site than the pre-development condition. Appropriate landscaping in areas proposed to store stormwater will be placed, which will be tolerant of the temporary ponding conditions. Staff is supportive of the applicant's request. The applicant is seeking approval of the rezoning to allow the development of 6 townhouses with a density of 6.66 units per acre, just over density typically allowed per the future land use designation of the residential low. Staff feels the development of the site as proposed is appropriate, and staff recommends approval of the request, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions as outlined in paragraphs D, E, and F of the agenda staff report. Staff recommends approval of the applications subject to the applicant providing an as-built survey and volume calculations prior to the issuance of the first certificate of occupancy to verify the proposed storage volume has been provided.
Thank you. Is applicant here? Oh. We only had one card. You're certainly welcome to speak. It was on consent agenda, but and you can wait to hear what this person wants to say, or whatever you'd like to do.
My name's Gordon Duckworth. I'm the architect for the project, and I've got Alan Smith, who's the civil engineer. McKinley Adams is representing the owner. He's also the builder.
Jess Griffin.
This is Jess Griffin. He worked out the grading plan.
Right. Why don't we hear from Shirley Nettles and see what her question is about the project? That might work best. Ms. Nettles, thank you.
Thank you. I have to be brief. My husband wants to watch the ball game.
Thank you.
I thought that would make a hit. Okay, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Shirley Nettles. I own the property across the street from this development. I have had this property for 36 years. Never had any kind of water issues until Madison Valley was built. We were promised during that time that Madison Valley was to be built. There would be detention ponds. There are 2 detention ponds that are just a smooth highway for making the water go faster. The recent renovation that we've had came about because we had water overflowing Taylor Loop, going all the way across my neighbor's yard, my yard, and into my garage. And that's happened 3 times in the last 3 years. May 21st of this year, we had a 1/2-inch rain. The stream that goes beside my house becomes a river. It's no longer a stream, and it comes in torrents. We had a full bank of water within 20 minutes. And I think that's too much water in a short period of time to continue with development across where we already have issues. I ask this body to consider and not be in a hurry to do this development. We've asked for detention ponds. My neighbor, who isn't here and had hoped to be here but had an emergency, worked for the Corps of Engineers. And he has constantly said, all of the new houses that are going in and the roads, the pavements, everything is just making us culprits, and our houses will be flooded. I've had to buy flood insurance. I don't live in a floodplain, says my deed, but I have to buy flood insurance to protect my house. I'll be 79 next year. I don't want to have to buy flood insurance. I live in an area that was not to be that. So I'm asking you to consider what I have said to you, and in consideration what I have been faced with ever since the Madison Valley. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Nettles. Yeah, drainage seems to be coming up as an issue for developments out here. I think Public Works speaks to that. Anyone from Public Works want to speak to that? I'll let the applicant address that as well, but there's a general issue beyond the application too.
Well, that's a very broad topic, and we're talking about a lot of different things. Of course, tonight we're talking about just the 1 acre lot there. The Nettles property would be the second house over from Gooch on the other side of the street. There is a very large drain that comes in and crosses right very close to the front yard of that house, including a little shop building then that's further down on the creek. She has called us before, and she had water in her shop building. Across the street, Madison Valley's some years old now. Maybe a couple of you remember when that one went in. It would be the subdivision to the south along Madison Road, and there is detention provided there. And it did meet the standard for the time. Certainly, though, in an area that's prone to flooding, you get some large events. And I'd remind you that even in the best of designs, they're to have a design storm, and when that design storm's exceeded, the water's still coming. It doesn't guarantee under every event it'll never flood, but certainly it was built to a standard for the 25-year pre-development and post-development storms. And, you know, we do try to pay very close attention to that. it has been an issue. We've heard several complaints over the years about Taylor Loop Road flooding. And in fact, the city not long ago went in and made some pretty substantial improvements in those drainage crossings to try to address that. I've heard arguments that maybe those pipes should have been bigger, but we also had to be mindful that there's a lot of people downstream of there too that have built their houses and have their backyards along those creeks. So we are aware of a lot of the drainage issues, and staff has spoke with Ms. Nettles before. It's our job to guide that development the best we can.
Okay, thank you. Applicant? The question of Mike? Hood. Yes.
Mr. Hood, will this, in your opinion, will this development make the flooding, make the drainage worse, or have no real impact?
We spent a long time on that little lot there. It's 0.9 acres. It's got 422 acres of drainage above it. And that's no small amount of water that comes down Gooch Road right there. That's a pretty good sized little creek, and it's got a big box culvert under Taylor Loop. I think it best let the applicant describe what he has done and what we've reviewed, as was presented there in the introduction. He actually is exempt from having to do any kind of stormwater detention because of the size of the lot so small. So small, but he has worked well with us.
Okay. Thank you. Sure, come on up.
How you doing? I'm Jess Griffin, civil engineer. And basically what we did is we first provided detention to slow any water down coming from any additional impervious area that we've added to the site, because there were 2 or 3 buildings there, and we've added some more pavement and buildings, but we've added a detention area to slow the water down for a 25-year storm event. And then we've also tried to be very mindful of the neighbors around and her property downstream. And prior to this development had some flooding, and we've had pictures and evidence of that flooding. And based on that pictures and historical evidence, we determined the elevation of what that flood was and the level that the flood got to. And from the existing contours to the flood elevation of the past event, we determined what the existing storage was. There's basically flood relief on this property, and we wanted to make sure we kept the flood relief the exact same or better. And so what we did was we measured how much flood storage was existing, and then when I designed the final grading plan for the buildings, we're doing a whole lot of cutting. We're filling around the buildings to get the buildings to an elevation to where these buildings won't be a flooding area. So the property existing was already a property that had issues because the building there was flooding. So we're improving this lot and not having flooding issues for this lot. And we're also being mindful of the neighbors by looking at the storage. And the end result, after the development will be developed, we'll have more flood storage than was previous. And so we're doing the detention. We're also doing flood storage, which we didn't have to do, but we're still allowing plenty of water to come onto our site if there is flood, so we have the equal amount of area there. And then I'd also say that we're 0.002 or 0.002% of the total area of the watershed is our area for our lot. So the effect that we would have on any flooding or impact would be very small because of just the fact that we're only 2 1,000ths of the entire watershed area. And so that's basically, do y'all have any questions or anything?
Commissioners, any questions of the applicant or comments? Commissioner Leahy.
Time to make comments, or you just want?
Yes, go ahead.
I feel for all these people out there, and it's a problem. I've been in this game since back in the 70s, but that doesn't make any difference. But I don't think some kind of a solution. There's got to be a solution for these people, but especially the neighbors. They didn't ask for this. They didn't want anything, and nobody is taking anything to protect them that's doing any good anyway. 25 years, in my opinion, is not near enough for the flood protection, flood zone out there, flood business. And I'm going to be opposed to it just on that reason. And I hate it for the developer, but I also feel for the people downstream when they've been there all the time and they don't have anything that they can do about it. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Leahy, for those comments for the record. Any other comments? Oh, Commissioner May.
I'm in sympathy with that because I've heard this story several times of this didn't happen before. That's a development area, but it's not doing anyone any good for more development. We're not going to stop it. But my little piece of the world, I sympathize with that because it seems like we have a 25-year event every 2 weeks here anymore. And we had a 1,000-year event here not too long in Little Rock, I remember, or 500-year, whatever it was. Just as my point of saying, slow down the development in a flood area that is going to affect somebody besides your property, and I'm going to be against it too.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Could I make a rebuttal point?
Sure.
I just want to explain to y'all that right now, the property as it sits, when there is extreme flooding, there's water ponding on that property. And what we did is we allowed more water to pond on our property than previously. So if anything, our development is giving them relief because we're providing more storage than previously was provided, and we're detaining, and we're only 2/1000% of the entire area. Now, if they want to pick on somebody, they should pick on all the developments up the hill, up the watershed, where there's huge retirement facilities, huge developments going in. We're only one tiny, not even an acre. And so we did everything we could do, and we're actually going to help their position out, is what I would argue, by providing more flood relief and storage on our property so it won't have to go downstream necessarily.
I understand your rebuttal. I'm still going to be against it because I hope that this just slows down where somebody will realize we've got a lot of hills in Little Rock that don't have things on them, and we're building down in the valleys just because it's property that's available to a road. And I think we just need to look at this and assess this. I'm just making a point.
But could you agree with me that we're not going to damage them any further?
Oh, yeah, I
by
think you may be
providing that
helping it,
storage?
but you're not helping it much.
So then we should promote this development if we're helping the downstream flooding.
Well, only 0.2% or whatever your numbers were.
I mean, that's only, yeah, so really.
Okay, that's all right.
I'm just trying to help out
We
here.
worked through that. We understand that both points. Any other questions, comments? Applicant, would you want to say something before we vote?
Mike? I would like to, just from an architectural standpoint, infill, improving just the general neighborhood, the fact that we're going in and willing to spend money with bringing up the grade and put in a development that will just enhance the neighborhood. And otherwise, it's just going to sit there and be a hole. So that's my comment.
All right. Thank you for your comments. Appreciate that. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval of this item, including all staff comments and conditions therein.
Okay. We have a motion to approve this application with all staff recommendations. Do I hear a second? Okay. All those approve of this application with staff recommendations, raise your hand. And those opposed? That's 7-2. 6-3. 6-3. Okay. Item passes. Appreciate the comments of the commissioners. There's a policy issue for sure with infrastructure, and we all know that. Okay. Thank you for your forbearance on that. We had a card for item 16. Is that still on regular agenda? Ms. James?
I think Mr. White can address that before I read my
So you need to read
40-minute
Okay.
dissertation into the.
Okay. Well, if you can be expeditious, that'd be great.
Ms. Brown had some questions. I think I've answered them, and we're going to get together between now and the city board meeting and visit.
Okay. So, Ms. Brown, that's okay? Okay. Well, we'll still need to go ahead and vote on this since it was
Item number 16, file number Z-8235-B, the Village at Bellaterre, long form PCD and PDR, located on the northeast corner of Stagecoach and Alexander Road. Staff recommends approval and subject to all those conditions I read when we read the consent agenda.
Okay. That's right.
Are they denying?
Okay. Those approve of item number 16 with all staff recommendations. I hear a motion.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I move that we approve. I move for the approval of item 16 with all staff recommendation conditions therein.
Do you hear a second? I'll second. Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. Those approve of the application, raise your hand. Thank you, Commissioner Leahy. Those opposed? Item passes 9. All right. Thank you with that. Item number 17.
Okay. Item number 17, Hillcrest Little Bakery, revised short form PCD, located at file number Z-8684-A, located at 201 and 203 North Van Buren Street. Ordinance number 2475, adopted by the Board of Directors on September 20th, 2011, rezoned the site from R3 to PCD to recognize an existing use and to add a mobile canteen as an allowable use for the site. The site contained a beauty shop, which is operated at 201 North Van Buren. The building was a 2-story building with the residence on top of the beauty salon. The site also contained a 3-bedroom dwelling located at 203 North Van Buren. The request was to allow the use of the single-family residence with general and professional office uses, or to allow it as a single-family residence. The current request is to amend the previously approved PCD to add a bakery as an allowable use. The applicant is proposing to rehabilitate both buildings and restore them to the original lap siding and historic look, and open a bakery restaurant utilizing the main structure. The smaller structure will be used for storage on the lower level and an efficiency apartment upstairs. The bakery will offer limited seating inside as to not encourage prolonged parking, but to be able to offer a limited number of clients the ability to eat on premise. The site plan indicates the placement of 10 parking spaces to serve the site. The existing gravel parking area will be paved, and the driveway into the backyard is proposed for additional paved parking. The building proposed for the restaurant contains 1,000 square feet. Parking for a restaurant is typically based on one parking space per 100 gross square feet of floor area, which would result in the need for 10 parking spaces. The site plan indicates the placement of a 20-foot drive along A Street and parking stalls 20 feet in depth. The plan does not include placing curb, gutter, or sidewalk along A Street. The applicant notes this section of A only serves this lot and a single-family residence to the east. Along the south side of A Street, improvements were installed with the bank construction at the intersection of A and Jackson. The sidewalk was put in place, which currently dead ends into a retaining wall. The property immediately south of the site is developed as an office use. There is no sidewalk in place along A Street adjacent to the office development. The applicant is requesting a waiver of the radial right-of-way dedication and a waiver of the right-of-way dedication for A Street. The right-of-way dedication will be provided for Van Buren. The request also includes a waiver of the street buffer requirement for the landscape ordinance requirements for the newly paved area along A Street. The area along A Street would require the placement of a street buffer of 6 feet 9 inches, which the applicant has not indicated on the plan. A new paved area is proposed within the rear yard area of the site. The plan indicates a placement of 4 parking spaces. The landscape and buffer ordinance would typically require a 6 foot 9 inch landscape strip adjacent to the paved area. The plan indicates a landscape strip which appears to be less than 4 feet. Staff is not in support of the applicant's request. Based on the applicant's redevelopment plan, the site does not provide the required right-of-way dedications, landscaping, and proper buffering. Staff feels the development as proposed is too intense for the site, and staff recommends denial.
Okay, thank you, staff. The applicant is here. Scott? Yes. Boy, please come up to the lectern, please, and tell us a little bit about your application, but also probably more speak to staff concerns regarding your site plan.
Hi, I'm Scott Loy with Hillcrest Little Bakery. So, do you ask questions first, or?
No, go ahead. You're the applicant.
Okay.
There's no card to speak against you, but staff has expressed concerns about the site plan. Probably just
Right.
best to speak to if you're not meeting some concerns.
Sure.
We want to know more
Sure.
about that.
If we can get the pictures up, it'll kind of help to verbally, or can we get the pictures up? Yeah, those. I thought I would have a clicker or something like that to walk through them. So
There we go.
sorry. Great. So this is a picture of the house current parking lot that's at 201, 203 North Van Buren. I'm sure most of you are really familiar with this property. It's at a very, very busy intersection here. It's about 150 feet north of Markham and Fair Park, right by War Memorial Stadium. The surrounding area here is commercial for offices on pretty much all sides. But when we start to look south, and you can see here across the parking lot, you see the Markham Suites Hotel. That's actually a reserved parking lot directly catty-cornered across the street for the subway that we're going to look at in just a minute, that's a little bit further down the street. This is looking at the direct across the street of A Street. You're looking down A Street. A Street connects Van Buren and Jackson and basically dead ends right there. The only things that come out onto A Street is the new bank parking lot's rear exit and this particular eye doctor's parking lot or side parking lot. He has parallel parking right here off the street. If you can kind of tell there on the connectivity of the sidewalks on the other side, the sidewalk that was built by the bank actually leads directly into the retaining wall of the eye doctor's property, which forces any kind of pedestrian traffic down onto the street anyway. Now, one of the concerns that the staff has about my property is that I am only providing a 40-foot parking lot, which is required by the city to have a 20-foot parking space with 20 feet behind it to be able to back up. But I've been told by the staff without curbing that would allow the people to directly back out onto A Street, which for all practical purposes is basically an alleyway anyway, only servicing the 4 properties. This is a really good picture of the property right behind the proposed property. If A Street was widened 4 feet by the city to meet their 15-foot restriction, because it's only 22 feet wide right now, it would carry over all the way to the back garage parking lot of the neighbor behind me and cover up that culvert. So I'm being asked to build curbing and a sidewalk to that culvert, just as it is. Can we go back to this? Thank you. This actually shows the parking lot as it is now. And the property is currently zoned for a hair salon, and there used to be a food truck that parked right there on top of those blocks that you saw. If you Google Earth this property, you'll see and be able to count 12 cars parked along that street on that gravel, which is pretty common. I talked to the neighbors. The reason that the neighbors all have signs up that say no parking here without being towed at the owner's expense is because the salon overflow would end up in their parking lots. And they said that that was a concern of theirs, that they didn't want to have to deal with that. Hence why parking is such a concern of mine with this property. Basically, if we follow the 35 center off of Van Buren and the 20-foot center off of this with sidewalks, with the landscaping, all the buildings on it have to be torn down. They are of no use. And the building that could be built to comply with city ordinances would have to be smaller than 600 square feet, because you're only going to get 6 parking spots on that property if we're mandated to follow all of the restrictions that the city planning is asking. So it's a catch-22 property. It's a lead into Hillcrest, and if you look at these buildings, they're old vinyl siding. They haven't been updated. There's beautiful lap board siding underneath these things. And our proposal is to have these buildings completely stripped and bring back the lap siding look of a Hillcrest kind of home. Develop a small bakery there that would serve, really our specialty item is going to be specialty donuts. So we expect we'll have a lot of in and out. If any of you have seen the Travel Channel, the cooking stations, we're going to bring in more of the gourmet donut type style to Little Rock is what our hope is. So it will be a very unique type item. We're not anticipating a need for long-term parking needs in a donut shop. It's just not what we're anticipating there. But as it sits right now, the city will allow it to continue to exist as a salon, and we can park a food truck on there and probably have more parking on that property than I'm trying to ask you guys to allocate and allow me to have with the 10 spots that we're laying out. Still giving the full 35-foot rights for the city on Van Buren, the main traffic street, but only asking for the waiver here on the corner. Now, this is looking up towards the property, actually going north on Van Buren. You can see the doctor's office as a lead up to our property. So the break in the city I-flow from the street will not change. We will still have all of the 35-foot radial met for Van Buren. Can we move to the next slide? This is my next door neighbor to the north. It's a chiropractic office. So I don't have a single family home there that I'm worried about. I've got commercial north, south, east, west. The only thing I've got is a rental house behind me. It's the only residential property at all. And I've spoken to them directly, and they have no issues whatsoever. They would have appeared here today. Can we look back down the street? This is, again, looking at the parking lot across the street. One more time. This is a Subway that's actually on the corner there of Markham and Van Buren. They back straight out onto Markham. And I can tell you right now, that's only 12 feet of space behind their parking spaces. And I'm 150 feet away from that. This is looking across at 2 cars in front of the Subway. That's Markham that you're looking at. That is not a street connecting an alleyway basically between Van Buren and Jackson. And this is just another adjacent view across the street. So our property from the parking lot of Subway looking up the street, you can see the sign to our property. You can see that directly across the street where the Exxon has taken over, there's no beautification, there's no curbage. They have direct access to pull onto Van Buren. And this Subway has direct access to back out onto Markham. So within this neighborhood, I don't think we're asking for anything that's not already existing. And in fact, the improvement that we're bringing to the property in and of itself is taking a property that's basically been barren and has been an eyesore in a lot of ways to the community. And we have a lot of support for what we're trying to do here. It's going to be a significant investment, probably around the neighborhood of $500,000 within the first year. Are there any comments or questions?
Commissioners. Commissioner May.
I've already said too much today, but I'm going to keep talking.
Okay.
Very familiar with it. I grew up on C Street.
Okay.
I can't tell you how many different things have been there in my lifespan. And that's an alley, as you said. I can understand why staff would have to vote against it, but I mean, that's just an alleyway. I remember when the eye doctor, I think it's an eye doctor now, Dr. Black was that built it back in the 60s, the office right across the street from that. But there's no traffic on A Street there, absolutely none. So I'd be in favor of it myself.
Okay.
Other commissioners? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval of item 17, including all staff conditions and recommendations therein, accepting the fact of denial.
Okay. You heard that motion. Do I hear a second for that? Second. Okay. If you approve of this application, raise your hand. If you do not approve, raise your hand. So that's 6-3.
Hang on just a second.
We're having a procedural issue on the vote,
Sure, I
so
understand.
bear with me a little bit.
We
To
need
be
a,
sh-
s-
be
we
sure
need a
we properly
second vote.
structure that.
We
Okay.
need a second vote on the request for the waiver of the right-of-way dedications
The right-of-way dedications for A Street, is that
Street.
correct?
and the radio
And
dedication.
the radio dedication as well. Public Works, are you agreeable with that?
And the waiver of the Boundary Street ordinance.
Well, you want that as a separate one too, or so we're gonna have three separate. So the first vote we took doesn't count, or we?
It's on the application.
Okay, so that vote's already taken place. So two more votes, two more motions, one for the waiver of the dedication for A Street, and then the second motion will be for the Boundary Street improvements on A Street.
The waiver.
Those.
Right. And your right-of-ways are your radial dedication and the right-of-way on A Street.
Have you got that?
Mr. Chairman, I move for the waiver of the Boundary Street requirements.
On A Street. Okay. So we're going to take a vote on that. Do you support the waiver of the Boundary Street improvement requirements on A Street? If you are supportive of the waiver of those requirements, raise your hand.
Chairman, I'll second that.
Second. Sorry about that. Thank you, Scott. So if you support the waiver of the Boundary Street improvements on A Street, raise your hand. And if you don't support the waiver, raise your hand. So that's 2-7.
What was the second one?
The waiver of the right-of-way dedication for A Street and the waiver of the radial dedication.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the bylaw waiver of
It's not a bylaw waiver.
bylaw waiver of,
No.
You move for the waiver of the right-of-way dedication for A Street and the radial dedication for A and Van Buren.
I move for what she just said.
Does he need to say it? Why don't you try to say it?
I'm not sure.
Anyone else want to take a stab at the a motion? I'm sorry, we're not very technical with legal stuff, so you'll have to. I can make a motion. I move for the waiver of the right-of-way dedication and the dedication of the radial turn there on A Street. And if you, do I hear a second? Second. Okay. So we have that motion for the waiver of the street right-of-way dedications and the radial dedication. If you support that waiver of that requirement, raise your hand. Do you understand? Okay. Okay, that's good. Got to count. Those who do not support that waiver, raise your hand. Okay. So that's 7-2. So your application is approved. All the
One more?
we're through. Thanks for all that. Appreciate that.
I appreciate you guys.
Okay. Okay. That was complicated. Y'all did good. I will say this for a point of record. I don't recall backing out from Subway into Markham. That's a tight parking spot, but I'll go back around to get out. Yeah.
And Commission, for clarification, there are several properties throughout the city of Little Rock that are essentially non-conforming in that matter because they were done prior to some of the codes being adopted and the landscape ordinance. But that does not, stop us from having to require those in a redevelopment of a property that has been existing.
So I understand completely. No, y'all are properly within your right to ask for something like that. Okay, staff item 18.
Item 18, file number Z-9228-A, 9010 Hilero Springs Road, revised short form PDC, located at 9010 Hilero Springs Road. Ordinance number 21-486, adopted by the Little Rock Board of Directors on October 2nd, 2017, rezoned the site from R2 single family to PDC to allow the reuse of the existing commercial building for retail uses. No changes to the exterior of the building or existing parking were proposed. The approval allowed C3 general commercial districts uses as allowable uses for the site. The approval did not allow the outdoor display of merchandise. The applicant is now proposing to amend the previously approved PDC to allow outdoor display of motorcycles and ATVs at the site. The applicant is also proposing the placement of an off-premise sign on the site, a billboard, to advertise his business as well as businesses located in other areas of the city. There are no changes proposed to the approved site plan or the previously approved allowable uses. Staff is not supportive of the applicant's request to allow the outdoor display as proposed. The applicant is seeking approval of C4 open display district uses on the property, which is located adjacent to residentially zoned and used property. The C4 open display district is intended to provide a location for a limited amount of merchandise, equipment, and materials being offered for retail sales that, because of the type of materials or transportation requirements, is suitable for display and storage outside the confines of an enclosed building. Such uses are not generally compatible with pedestrian-oriented commercial districts or shopping centers since they tend to obstruct and interfere with pedestrian movements. Appropriate locations for this district are typically along heavily traveled and major arterials. The staff does not support the request for the off-premise billboard at this location. Billboards are typically limited to C3, C4, and I2 and I3 districts. Billboards are typically placed on heavily traveled major arterials. Staff does not feel this is an appropriate location for an off-premise sign, and also City Code establishes a cap on the number of billboard permits. The cap has been reached and there are no additional billboard permits allowed. To allow an additional permit would require a change in City Code. Staff recommends denial of the application.
Okay. Thank you, staff. The applicant's here. Would you please come to the lectern and state your name? There's no cards speaking against this, so you're welcome just to say a few words about your application and speak to staff concerns. And now, Ruth has a card. Okay. Thank you. Okay. State your name and speak to the staff's concerns.
I'm Rizwan Surani. On this property, we are just asking for to display our merchandise like 4 or 5 ATVs. We have a business for ATV four-wheelers. And I'm not rushing about the billboard now. It's fine. If the city don't allow the billboard, it's okay. But just I request you to allow us to display these products. This is our products. The small kids ATVs. It's just a kids' toys.
Pass that around. There you go. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. We do have one card in favor. Stephen Mann, did you say you wanted to speak for this application? Okay.
Yes.
Myself and Pam Bingham. Pam Bingham was the president of the Upper Baseline Group. We was out at one of the areas talking to somebody and seen that the new business had moved in, so we decided to go over and welcome them to the neighborhood. This is a very proactive business. They're for the community. Very, very pleasant people to talk with. And herself and I thought it was going to be a great asset to the community because they're proactive about the community and concerned about it. So our vote was to get them in there and make them happy.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. We did have, stand by. We'll have Ruth Bell come up as she has something to say. Then you can speak to that after she.
Okay. I'm still Ruth Bell with the League of Women Voters. And clarify for me, does this application still have a billboard in it or does it not?
It's not.
It's gone. Okay. I'm still concerned about the C4 outdoor display request because although I'm sure the applicant is a very good citizen and a very positive person, that's outdoor display, which means that anything, literally anything of any size, mostly large, can be displayed without any action taken by the city. And although it sounds like, I'm sure he's a conscientious person and he doesn't plan to put 10 semis there or anything that looks terrible or awful, especially if it's something he's selling or renting. But the fact of the matter is there are residences to the, I think I'm straight south, and this is a street that's fairly well traveled, and although the neighbors like the applicant a lot, the people going up and down that busy street don't know that he's a really nice guy, but what they see is outdoor display that doesn't look terribly appealing if they're thinking about the residential aspects of that area or some of the businesses. There are a lot of retail businesses that would not care to be right next to a location where anything can be parked right up, visible outside. It just is an inappropriate use in that particular location. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. You can come up. Anything else you wish to add or say in rebuttal?
I can just request you, sir, that I just want this yes, sir.
My question is simple. What's the building across the street?
The cross the street, there is a parking lot, and there's a Sawyer grocery. It's not in the working, and the children church. They do the something for the older people.
There's an
church.
After school program over where the Sawyer grocery store used to be. That's supported by the city, so that's what's across the street from.
Okay. Any questions of the applicant? Or comments about the application? Yes.
In terms of Ms. Bell's concern, is a possibility to limit or designate what items could be
if he chooses to make that a part of his application.
Okay.
Another question for staff is staff still opposed if the billboard is not in it?
Yes.
Thank you.
So everyone understands the staff concern mainly is about the open display.
And the potential of what could possibly be a part of the future open display.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry.
Yes.
Just only one question, sir. Actually, this property was closed from 2 to 3 years, and nobody has know that we are here. Because of just that reason, we want to show that we are here, and that's for the display. That's it.
I understand. Yeah.
And not more like just 4 to 5
Yes.
in my parking spot, not outside my building, just next to my door, and there is a parking lot, the line, in the parking spots, where the cars are parked.
Commissioner Hamilton? No? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval of this item with all staff conditions and comments therein, accepting that of denial.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the application with staff recommendations. Those who approve of this application, do I hear a second, by the way? Is there a second to the motion? Okay. Y'all are thinking Diamondbacks. I'm in hogs. Sorry. Those who approve this application with staff recommendations, raise your hand. Okay. 1, 2. Okay. And those who, 3. And those who do not approve the application, raise your hand. 3, 4, 5. So the application is denied.
Okay.
Ms. James?
You have the right of appeal. You'll just get with me, and I'll tell you what we need to do to get there. Okay.
Thank you for that. Okay. Item number 19. That was 18.
The request is to rezone item number 19, file number Z-9328, 39th and Stannis, short form PDR, located north of West 39th Street between Stannis Road and Wilder Street. The request is to rezone the property from R3 Single Family District to PDR Planned Development Residential to allow the development of 4 buildings of duplex housing on the site. The new buildings are proposed containing approximately 2,300 square feet. The applicant indicates the buildings will be 1 story with a flat reinforced concrete slab, thermal insulated wood frame, structure clad in vinyl siding, and contain vinyl clad thermal glazed windows and a hip roof. The site is currently 1 tract and was not previously subdivided into lots. The applicant is proposing to subdivide the development into 4 lots and construct a new duplex building on each lot. Each lot is proposed with a single driveway and 6 parking spaces. Parking for multifamily is typically based on 1 space per unit. A duplex unit would typically require the placement of 3 parking spaces. A minimum setback of 35 feet from the street right-of-way is proposed. There is a minimum 5-foot side yard setback on each lot. The lots along Stannis Road are located within 9-foot 6-inch side yard setback from the side property line. The buildings located on West 39th Street are indicated with a minimum side yard setback of 24 feet. The applicant has indicated right-of-way dedication per the master street plan will be provided. The applicant is requesting a waiver of the required street improvements to the abutting street. The applicant states in his follow-up letter he has developed several similar projects within close proximity to the site and has not been required to install the boundary street improvements, nor has the applicant been required to seek a waiver of the requirements from the Planning Commission or the Board. He states within the City of Little Rock boundaries, the site is somewhat remote and the streets are not well traveled. He states Stannis and Wilder Streets are dead-end streets into Bull Park, which is a positive enhancement to the quiet rural-like setting. In staff's opinion, since the project is a single lot and the applicant is proposed to be platted into 4 lots, the boundary street ordinance is indeed triggered and the improvements are required. And Mr. Hood's going to come up and give you a little bit more on why we feel that this is important.
You've seen this applicant before. He's done several applications here. He's in my office a lot, I know that. This is a little bit different. It is a little bit different. It's true what he says, but in this case, he's bought himself an odd lot, and there's no other way to describe it, and it's a big lot. Before, he was dealing with old existing platted lots. Most of them were in the Barra Edition that were already on the ground. The code says for 1 and 2 family lots, you're exempt from boundary streets, don't need nothing from public works. But this isn't quite the same. It's a duplex, but he's bought this big lot, and he's going to cut it into 4 pieces. It makes it a subdivision. So once you start subdividing land, creating new lots to sell, then you're subject to all the boundary street requirements. Now, I don't know the economics. This is an awful small subdivision, but it is 4 lots. And let me tell you, the streets are horribly substandard. They don't even meet the minimum for fire code to be safe. They don't even have 20 foot of pavement on it. So in all good conscience, we shouldn't be approving a development that doesn't even meet the fire code. You know, and we've got a pretty intense development proposed here where they got a driveway with a lot of parking spaces. They got cars maneuvering in and out. And in all good conscience, we just could not support a waiver of boundary street ordinance in this case. He's got to go in and do a lot of work on these lots to make them work anyway. Let's just do that little bit of work on the outside, get it all fixed up, get them nice and marketable. It's in his favor, and it's in the favor of the public to have a little room for those cars to maneuver there and, you know, make things right on that new 4 lots that he's creating.
Thank you, Mr. Hood. Anything else, Ms. James?
Yeah, based on the applicant's request for the waiver of the required boundary street improvement, staff is not supportive of the applicant's request. Staff recommends denial of the request of the request. But note, the commission did receive a letter from the support from the John Barrell Neighborhood Association and in support of the requested waiver of the required street improvements, and that was in your package today.
Yes, we saw that. Thank you. Applicant, would you like to speak?
Yes. I got something to show you this time.
Okay. Just go ahead and pass them around, please. Thank you.
My name's Stanley Phillips, and I've been working in the John Barrow area. And if you notice, that area there is nothing's moving over there. There are about 5 or 6 resident houses there. It's very, very, very no travel. Only thing over in there now is deer and maybe a bear up in that big woods. And no, I did not. When I first looked at the land, because those that know me know I don't like fights. I'd rather not fight. And it was plotted 9 lots, where it turns out that the owners of the property, old people, they never filed it. So it turned out to be, in essence, one big lot that didn't get platted. But that don't make sense, you know. I mean, like, my thing is, let it make sense. Because something's a rule or it's on the books, let it make sense. The parking that I put in, my people they don't bag out in the street. There's plenty of room to turn out. I put in way more parking than necessary. Y'all know Ms. Hyman. She bleeds John Barrow. For her and the association to be in agreement, we went out to the site. We've looked at it. We've been there many times. I don't know how many times the city been out there, but ain't nothing moving out there. There's no traffic, except for people going in and out their houses that's been there. I have the support. You notice there's no neighbors here fighting me. The people, there's one house I heard, but I have the other 5 or 6 houses that support me. And the parking, my parking, and thanks to Vince, you turn in. We do have, my parking is 30 by 60. You got 20 feet that you turn into it, another 20 feet, and you got a 20 feet turnaround. So there is no problem with traffic of cars bagging out into the street. Even though the street is not heavily trafficked, my people will be able to park like always. We have had no trouble. And Ms. Hyman indicated in her letter, we've only had one problem 8.5 years ago. All my developments look new. There's no police reports. There's no trouble. And because of, this one big lot don't mean it doesn't make sense to put in curbs, sidewalks, and gutter when ain't nobody going to use them. There's no traffic in that area. 2 dead-end streets. 5 or 6 houses, nothing moving but the bear. It's not any traffic over there. And my people will, like always, my promise that when I came here a number of years ago to add to the neighborhood, not take from it. And there's been no trouble. We have, and I've talked with Director Wright. She's investigated it. It didn't make sense. I've been over her house. It didn't make sense to add a cost when there's not going to be any usage. I'm all for. Oh, what I showed y'all was more landscaping. I'm going to make them look better. I'm going to spend more money. I've agreed with her. Y'all know Director Wright. I agreed with her. And I'm going to worry. I'm a good neighbor. And my thing is to add value to the neighborhood. And if it made any sense, or we're going to even be any kind of usage out of it, but why just pour money out on the street when there's no need? And no, where it don't make no sense. And y'all know Ms. Heitman. We went over there, we sat, we watched. There would be no usage.
Thank you very much. We do have one card in opposition. Carl Benz.
Thank you so much for hearing me. I have a PowerPoint. So you can show that picture, actually, if you don't mind, real quick. The one you just see. There you go. So see that house? That's mine. So mine would be surrounded by the developments. And then the people that you see are my neighbors. So it's really a good view. These are all wonderful people who live here. There's a retired firefighter whose son is a policeman, a retired Navy seaman's widow. That's an office worker. Across the street is Omari's mom, who works and is at UCA. And down the corner, there's a lady who's a widow, and at the end of the street where you can't see is another friend who works construction, and they have grandchildren who live there. So as it was described, and you can go ahead and start my PowerPoint if you don't mind. It is it's quiet. It's ideal, and it's why we decided to live there. It's what we love. So I want to show you I want you to understand a little bit about where I'm coming from. So the little boy in the red shirt, that's Omari. That's Jackson's little boy standing up. Maribah, Max. That's Caden, whose brother is Kite, who's in the yellow shirt. The little boy in the middle is BJ. I'm not sure about BJ's cousin. He's there all the time. I think it's a Cedro, but he goes by Izzy, and that's Charlie. So they're in my truck, and they and the people I described, they're the reason that I'm here, because I want to represent what it is that we have and why the community that we have is special and why it needs to be preserved. And you can go to the next slide, please. So I'm Carl Benz, and a little bit about my background is I have worked with youth and families for quite a while. I was with a nonprofit before I'm with my current job, which is with ASU. So I worked for a nonprofit. We did services for families, specifically for children. I know a whole lot about what children need and what makes a good living environment, and this is what we have right here. And currently I work for Arkansas State University. I'm the professional development coordinator for summer program, out of school time programming. So I do a leadership program, and I teach teachers what best practices are. And one of the things that is important to us is, how children live and what their environment's like that they live in. So it's a little bit about me. And you can go ahead and go to the next one. So for me, when I thought about, you guys, I know you are experts in one way about housing, obviously. But, I put things into 3 categories. Safe streets, familiar faces, safe streets, and then lasting memories. So then those are real pictures, by the way. When you look at those pictures, you can go backwards and not, yeah. If you click the other arrow, it'll take you that other direction. So let's go back so I can, so those were real pictures. You're going forward through the presentation. Yeah. Try that one more time. Excellent. So that's Monty, that's BJ, and BJ again with Charlie, and those kids hug in there. That's in my backyard. That's Kite and Max, and they had just gotten a fight, and they were learning, they were making up, being good friends, and all the other kids are gathering around them. So those are the things that I think are important, and I think when kids have an opportunity like they do in this place, and it is as it's described, it's just an ideal setting for youth. It brings out wonderful things and creates the type of citizens, and it creates the type of housing that we want people to be able to enjoy. So you can go to the next slide, please. So what is it about where we live? What is it about my community? So we have three things, and I'm going to go ahead and give you these packets. Apologize for not remembering that. If you don't mind. What I'm going to talk about. So you'll see the first thing is there, number one, friendly relations. So lots of familiar faces. People have lived there a long time. People are not on top of each other. So I told you I worked with kids. I worked in multifamily housing. One of the big issues for children is in those environments is just the space. It's the space to play. It's the things to touch. It's the ability to not be right next to somebody, or to not be in somebody's face, or to be able to pick things up, to move about freely, and then to be in an environment where you know faces. And that's really what we have. And those relationships make kids safe, and they allow them to grow up. And a lot of you grew up that way, because I can tell a lot of you maybe you're just a little older than me, or at least my age. So we grew up that way. The streets are safe. Kids ride bikes, they skate, and they cross the street safely, and that's real important. So they're able to go from one yard to the other. They're welcome. They're even able to walk down to Union Park, which is close by. And then we have this community, and I say community of opportunity and assets. So kids, they feel safe. They share yards. My kids go across the street and bounce on the trampoline. We've got a little paved area where I put a big old load of dirt, and the kids come and get their Tonka toys out, and they dig, and it enriches their lives. It gives them an opportunity that, I really believe that we should invite everybody to have. And then they have stable home values, because when people see these things, they want those things. And wanting homes is important, especially when you think about, having to resell your home, or if someone passes away and you want them to, it's my family coming in. Hello. You can go to the next slide, please. So I'm going to invite you, when you watch this short video, I want you to look for those things. Friendly faces. I want you to look for the safe streets and just the community assets. And you're going to have to bring your cursor up. I'm going to go back. And if you'll bring it up towards, there you go. Go down to that arrow. Ta-da. watching that for me. Hope it was as fun for you as it was for me. Probably not. So next slide, please. So I want to make just a connection to homes here. So familiar faces, these are the homes that are there, and I walked the block in this. They're inviting homes. They look like homes. There's grass. There's a walkway. They're quaint. There's little tweaks that make them personal. You know, Miss Catherine lives here, and she's this way, and she's got dogs and cats. And so it's inviting is what I really want to bring out about that. And then, you know, when I guess the kids are in the street there. You see in that middle picture, it's safe. It's safe. It is low traffic. It is, people are looking out the windows, and they're thinking, hey, you know, we care about those kids. We know those kids. Those kids know us. They've been over. We've had popsicles together, you know. So in the picture below, it's just, we were talking about adding cars. We're talking about adding 8 cars. And we're talking, you know, if you don't improve the roads, you know, it's bad enough. If you do, you widen it. And then that's just a dangerous situation when you narrow, you have lots of cars. All of a sudden in a place where you don't. It's certainly going to change the tenor of the environment. And, you know, the last thing I had on there, the third thing I said was memories. But when you combine those first two things, the familiar faces and the safe streets, what you get is just one big green space. And that's what we have. We have kids sharing yards, sharing things. They're playing with each other. They are building memories. And that is, I think when you put 1 and 2 together, and I didn't mean for this to be clever, but, you know, 1 + 2 is 3. You know, you get valuable homes. When people go to neighborhoods and they're looking and their parents and they're thinking, okay, is this a place that my child can thrive? They're looking for those things. And that's the value of the home. That's the value of these homes. And that's the generational value that I really think that we're in the best interest of everybody to preserve. Next slide, please. So I just tried to summarize our concerns and keeping everything in threes. We're concerned about the crowding, about how that's going to, you know, impact neighboring, the sharing of personal space, and, you know, building relationships. So I have a reference to that if you want to check that out. I don't assume that you guys haven't read so much, but you know, these are things that I think are important. So maybe there's just the opportunity to learn a little bit more. We're concerned about the car traffic increasing, and that's definitely going to increase danger, and I've done some research on that, and just, you know, we'd like to avoid that. We'd like for that not to be an issue. And then non-single family homes, you know, I tried to illustrate in the slide before how those can have an effect on the value of a home when people add things up. You know, when they add up the lack of neighboring plus unsafe streets, you know, they add that up too. People do the math and they think, okay, well, this probably isn't going to be a long-term value for us. So this isn't something that I want right now, especially, you know, families who are looking to move into an area. And I've got some information on that for you. This next slide is same concerns. And I'll try to, you know, to frame things positively because I hope to be a positive person all the time. And there we go. So same concerns, but, you know, I think the best for this is to keep it residential. I think to keep it with homes. I'm fine with seeing homes there. I think homes are inviting places for life to happen. But, you know, I don't know what's going to happen. So I thought of, you know, what are some of the things that comprehensively could work together? Fewer duplexes, roundabouts, closing the street off, creating green spaces so that, you know, that's not lost. Because all of that will be lost. That would definitely happen when there's cars and lots of people, and people are not sure about who lives there and if there's turnover. So, you know, these are things that can maybe ameliorate possibly. And then, you know, downtown, I know you guys have seen it, you know, it used to be farming. So people have turned their carriage houses into homes. So possibly an arrangement like that might be a little bit more appealing to home buyers. You know, I know it's been done successfully downtown. Again, you know, I would hope that you would value the community as it is. I think it's worthy of keeping. I think that it's something that I would like to see. It's based on my experience working with kids and being around families and neighboring, that I think we need to move towards, and we need to be moving towards every day. It's just kids need time. You know, they need space in the house. They need space outside of the house. They need more recess. And this place provides all of those things currently. It's a blessing to at least 12 kids that I can think of right off the top of my head. And then those are just the ones lining up this particular street. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Benz. The applicant would like to come up to the lectern, please.
Yeah, I appreciate everything that he shared and about the kids. And, you know, my thing has been not everybody can buy a house at this time in their life. And if y'all would take a look at the duplexes and the enhancements I'm doing to them, they're biggest houses. They look like houses thanks to Doris Wright. And I got a landscaper designer did that layout on the landscape, and they're going to look even more appealing. I talked with Mr. Jamie Collins about the city objection. We came to an understanding. I told you I don't like to fight. And so I'm in agreement that, do I tell him? You can tell him.
Mr. Stanley, you need to, this is your application.
Okay. I'm in agreement.
So essentially, Public Works and staff and planning staff is in agreement that when we presented this, it was the 20 foot of asphalt, essentially the life safety, the emergency vehicle access. And so in your original application, you was requesting a waiver of the boundary street ordinance adjacent to your property for this development. So that would be up to you to amend your application to improve the roadway for 20 foot wide asphalt pavement only. And then that would, you know, my understanding would be acceptable by the city staff, but that is you to amend that application.
I'm in agreement. They already know I don't like to fight. I'm easy.
Okay,
you know?
but you need to, if you want to amend your application,
yes,
to abide by a 20-foot
yes,
asphalt requirement, you need to say that.
I'm saying that I will abide by a 20-foot asphalt agreement. No problem.
Okay. Any questions, commissioners?
Just a question, now if he amends it, is the staff still recommending denial, or?
Yep, they agree with 20 foot, and so the right-of-way dedication would still be a requirement. Essentially, his boundary street improvements will just be bringing up the existing asphalt to a width of 20 feet, which it varies from the slide that you saw that we showed. It's 14, 15 foot wide, so it will be variable. And then the curb and gutter would be waived, and the sidewalk would be waived.
And he's already agreed to the waterway dedication.
That's correct.
Okay. Let me go back to my question, though. Are you still recommending denial for the whole project, or?
With that, we would recommend approval.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Well, before we have a motion, I appreciate Mr. Benz. I appreciate your passion for community. There is a big discussion out there with if duplex is a softer density, and that's still part of community as well. This is vacant land we're talking about, and won't always be. So with that said, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of this project with all staff conditions and recommendations therein.
And do I hear a second? Second. Okay. We have a motion to approve the applications with staff recommendations and is amended by the applicant, as he said, for the record. So, have those approve, raise your hand. Those who do not approve, application okay. So that's 9 ayes, yes, okay. All right, thank you very much. I believe that's all. There's any citizen communications, anyone want to say anything about any other issue that's not on the agenda? Certainly welcome to that, or talk about baseball. And
well, I'd like to applaud the staff for all the concessions that we voted them into on Hillcrest and the Heights. I know we've voted for some that'd rather us gone away, but
yeah,
you know, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate staff. Appreciate it. We are adjourned.